Should developing catchers throw weighted balls? In this video, we're going to discuss when you or your catcher should consider weighted ball training, if ever. And if you're wondering why I feel the need to give my opinion on this matter, in high school, I was throwing 88 from the crouch. My arm kind of set me apart at the college level. And even after my days of playing ended, I've been able to hit over 100 miles an hour on a pull down. And I've been gunned over 90 miles an hour off of a pitcher's mound with no pitching instruction ever. The reason I say all this is not to brag, but to tell you that throughout the course of my career and even after my career, I've never utilized a weighted ball for training. But does that mean that you shouldn't either? I now work privately with catchers of all ages to not only develop their throwing mechanics, but to improve their metrics like pop time and velocity. Last month, we had Casey hit a 194, Leo also hit a 194, and Aiden got all the way down to a 182. Not only have these guys decreased their pop time, but they've been able to create more velocity within their throws in a way that feels more effortless, and they have not touched weighted balls. So to answer the question, should you or your catcher incorporate some kind of weighted ball training into your regimen, we must first understand the reason why you're even considering using weighted balls in the first place. So take a second to ask yourself, what is your motivation for wanting to include some kind of weighted ball training into what you're doing? Most of the time when guys are asked this question, the answer is they want to throw harder, they want to create more velocity. They believe that more velocity is going to help set themselves apart, and they're right. If they can throw harder, they have a higher chance of playing the game for a long time. So if we can understand our motivations behind weighted balls, now we can start to consider all of the pieces that go into making this decision if you should incorporate this type of training, or if you should focus your attention and energy somewhere else. The plan for this video is to simply lay out all of my considerations that I used in my own career, as well as with the athletes that I now coach, so that you can hear the pros and cons to weighted ball training, and you can make an informed decision for yourself. All right, let's dive in. You've probably heard a lot about weighted balls. You've probably seen them on the internet. You see clips of pitchers throwing them and people incorporating them into their training. For this reason, you've considered if you should be throwing them, if they're beneficial, how they work, how to structure a plan. The idea is often that throwing heavier balls helps an athlete develop arm strength, which will ultimately allow the athlete to throw harder. And yeah, some studies do show that throwing weighted balls can increase velocity, but this is only one piece of the puzzle, and we must understand all of the potential risks that are associated with weighted ball training. There are various studies providing empirical support that weighted ball programs can increase pitching velocity, so we would go ahead and assume that it would do the same for us as catchers. I'll link all of the studies that I'm going to reference in the description of this video. On a systematic review of 10 studies on weighted ball training, 7 of those 10 reported significant increases in velocity after the completion of a weighted ball velocity program. The velocity increase in these studies was a range from 2 to 11 miles per hour, but it begs the question, what are the risks that are associated with this type of velocity development? And is there a better way to get the same results with decreased risk? Now, here is where we need to be smart, especially when we're talking about developing catchers. While training with weighted balls can increase velocity, the evidence is pretty clear that training with weighted balls can also be a source of increased risk for injury. When I was in college, I tore my labrum, and I visited a doctor named Dr. Romeo. Dr. Romeo is a shoulder and elbow surgeon who was a doctor with the White Sox at the time. I'm not sure if he still is. Dr. Romeo wrote online that in his clinical experience, younger players training with weighted balls have a tendency to overtrain and have a higher incidence for shoulder and elbow injuries compared to those who only throw with a regulation-sized baseball. He goes on to say that throwing with weighted balls can increase stress on the shoulder and elbow. One study found a 24% injury rate in the weighted ball group during the 6-week study and the season that followed. That means that if you and 3 of your buddies all threw weighted balls this season, roughly 1 of you guys would suffer an injury during that time or in the subsequent season. I don't know about you, but to me, that number is just a little too high. What I found interesting about these studies is what they say about light balls. So this is throwing balls that are lighter than a baseball, often in the 3 to 4 ounce range. They present lighter balls as an alternative that might increase velocity without the same suggested increase in risk for injury that you would see with weighted balls. Essentially, what they're saying with this study is that if we throw lighter balls, we can get our arm to move faster without the added stress on the shoulder and elbow. Now, this decrease in torque or stress could be important, especially for the skeletal immature athletes or a developing athlete. But before we chase speed or overloading muscles with specialized training equipment, we need to talk about the foundational elements that actually unlock velocity and allow us to get the results that we want. Essentially, we need to have a really good understanding of how our throw actually works. And the truth of the matter is, for most young young and developing catchers, they don't understand their body well enough. They don't understand their mechanics well enough to properly implement weighted ball training. They need to understand how to move properly. They need to understand how to implement proper movement patterns, and they need to train their mechanics to a point that can possibly support weighted balls in the future once they are developed. The next piece of the puzzle is proper strength training. With the case of weighted balls, we're talking about overloading the throwing arm in order to build back stronger so we can throw the ball harder. The same result can be achieved through proper training in the weight room and spreading that over a long period of time. Part of the appeal with weighted balls is guys think that they can jump on a 6-week program and bump up their velocity 10 miles an hour. As they say, easy come, easy go. So sometimes when guys get these results so fast, the next thing that happens to them is injury. So if you're thinking long-term about your career, if you're thinking about how do we maximize our strength and our ability to play for a long time, you're going to be much better off implementing a proper training plan, diet plan, sleep plan in order to allow your body to build at a pace that it can handle and allow for the recovery to happen as it needs to. At the end of the day, you want to throw harder, but do not look for some magic shortcut that is going to get you the results that you want in a short period of time. When you look at the length of your career and if you project that over the next 5 to 10 years, throwing weighted balls for the next 6 weeks to perform at an upcoming showcase might not be the best option for you. Once you can look me in the eye and tell me, hey, my sleep is dialed, my diet is dialed, my training in the weight room is dialed, I've been spending the last year and a half, I put on 15 pounds of muscle, I'm running my sprints every day, I'm doing all the things that I need to be doing, and I still don't have the results that I want, which in a lot of cases, if you take care of all of those not so attractive, not so sexy things first, by the time that you get to consider weighted balls, you don't really need them anymore. I kind of see it as a quick fix to a bigger problem. Again, this is just my side of the story. The way that I coach my guys, we don't touch these things, but I think a lot of my guys appreciate the long-term view that I have of their career instead of trying to sell them quick results. Start considering all of the things that you could be doing better before you implement weighted balls. I coach my guys on mechanics. I'm a big long toss guy, and I'm a big weight room guy, sleep guy, nutrition guy. If that's something that's interesting to you, if you want to follow a program that might not be so sexy, but is tailored to a long-term approach for you in your career, there's a link to schedule a discovery call with me. We can run through your situation, hear what you might need, and see if we can build you a program around that.